Hey everybody, welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Matt Connerton, and of course, to my right, joining us again this week is Jane Cormier.
I thought you were going to say Gary. Okay.
Oh, no.
There you go.
No, I don't want to run the joke too far into the ground.
Good.
I did talk to Gary earlier today.
How's he doing?
He's doing better.
Good.
He's doing better. He's still, his neck is pretty sore, but he'll get there.
Absolutely. He's a fighter.
Oh, I want to mention, too, because last week was fun. Our guest didn't make it, so I interviewed you largely about your opera career.
Yes.
And that episode, for anyone who missed it, will be up tonight on IPM Nation by probably about 10 o'clock.
Fabulous.
So people can go and watch it on demand.
Yeah, I can't remember having a better time for, question and answer.
Good. No, it worked out well, because I was very, very interested to know more about that.
Well, there you go.
So that was last week's show.
Yes.
And we won't mention the name of the guest who blew us off.
No, we can't do that. That's not nice.
Well, I don't want to give him any free publicity.
So you don't cross Matt.
That's right.
So we have a guest today.
Yes.
Who is running for state senate, and we know how important those races are for New Hampshire for keeping the constituents in the political process by putting in good state senators.
Mm-hmm.
Really important. So we have Eileen Landys today. How you doing, Eileen?
I'm doing fabulous. Happy Wednesday. Is it already
It's
Wednesday?
Happy Wednesday already.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, goodness. It's a pleasure. So you're running for State Senate District 20.
District 20. So that's Manchester Wards 3, 4, 10, 11, and the town of Goffstown.
Okay, wow.
So like the west side, about a third of Manchester and the west side.
Right. So how's it been on the campaign trail?
It's been good. Obviously it's a lot of work. So I've been, going around door knocking, and when it's dark, I make phone calls, and so it's been busy. I've been reaching out to voters, doing sine waves. I'm trying to do a sine wave in the morning and in the afternoon.
Sure.
Every day, at least starting. I've done it almost every day for the month.
Good for you.
So.
Good for you. And who is your opponent?
My opponent is Lou D'Alessandro.
So the incumbent Lou D'Alessandro. And how many years has he been sitting in that seat?
He's been in that seat since 1998.
Mamma mia.
Incumbent with a capital I.
Yes.
That's an incumbent, all right. Yeah.
That would be a career.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That would be a career. And he, certainly name recognition since he's been there so long. He has a bit of I guess a lead in some ways. But if you were to talk about the differences between Lou D'Alessandro and Eileen Landys, what would they be?
Oh my, there are so very many of
Pick
them.
a few.
Pick a few. Well, taxes is for one. I mean, like Lou's voted for, I can't even tell you the number of tax increases over his tenure as senator, and that would not be something that I would be voting for. So I'm very fiscally conservative. I would like people to keep their hard-earned dollars.
Yes.
And I think that kind of makes sense. You've spent your days of your life. You've spent your hours you're not going to get ever back again, and to not be really good stewards of that money that the government has taken from you. In the form of taxes is wrong.
Absolutely.
And so I'm very present to that.
Yes,
So.
I think that's probably one of the biggest things we're facing right now with the budget. The big hole that's in the budget right now. And I saw the recent editorial, I believe, that he put into the Union Leader about. There was no real problem, and just walk right by this. This is fine, and there was no lack of bad stewardship involved with this. But it's absolutely a travesty.
So so not only have you gone over the budget, but then have the audacity to ask for another 18% in the next budget. So let's put this so I've overspent this year, like really tremendously. I've had a heyday. I've gone to Caribbean or wherever. I haven't been really watching what my expenses are, and
Right.
I've really overspent. But I had a pretty good year this year. I enjoyed spending what I was spending. So I'm going to go to my boss and say, you know what, I need a 18% increase because I kind of had a lot of spending this year, and I know I want to do the same kind of spending next year, and so I really need an 18% increase. What's your boss going to tell you?
Yeah.
Really, your boss is
Absolutely.
going to tell you no.
Go pound sand.
Yes, exactly. And I'm hoping that there's the voice of reason here that's going to tell them as well. Absolutely not.
Right.
Nope.
Right.
Nope. This is your budget. This is what you have, because any increase of that, the bottom line is the taxpayers. It's coming out of your pocket.
Totally.
That's
Yeah,
a
and we
big
can't
number.
afford it.
18%. That's a big number.
We can't afford it. I mean, really, we just can't afford it.
And not with the electric, and we all know that the electric charges
Yep.
that are on looming, where they're saying maybe $40, $50 more per month.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we already
That's
have some
weird.
of the highest electric rates in the nation, and that's
Yeah.
one of the hindrances, just one. There's multiple hindrances is why our economy is so flat, and why we don't have the kind of good paying jobs that we're looking for to have in New Hampshire. So we have like 90,000 people cross the border every morning, and I'd rather have them stay here, spend their money here that they would have paid in taxes to Massachusetts, and spend more time, the quality of life with their kids. Maybe they could, go to Sally's ballet lesson, or coach their son's little league, or do any of those things. But you're spending it sitting in your car going to Massachusetts. Let's stay here. But our high energy costs are just one of those factors that's keeping businesses
are not being addressed whatsoever.
Absolutely not. No, they're not.
Passed along to the taxpayer, or to the whoever's going to subsidize the cost for anything.
Yes, and we want good paying private sector jobs here that are going to provide benefits.
Right. Absolutely.
And so you can't get them if we've got a unwelcome mat put out to businesses, and that's exactly what we do.
Right. Is this your first time running, or have you run before?
I have not run before. This is the first time I'm running. I've been up in Concord for 6, almost 7 years as a citizen advocate.
Yeah.
Someone had asked me before how many hours you figure I've put in purely volunteer. It's actually cost me money to do this, and I figured about 20 hours a week for the last, I'd say conservatively 5.5 to 6 years, where I've really kind of ramped up.
Yeah.
Where I've put in 20 hours a week volunteering in one way, shape, or form towards the political process. So that's keeping an eye on taxpayers. It's reading legislation. It's testifying, training people how to testify.
Right.
So no, I've been very engaged for a long time, and I figured, wow, this is a pay increase. No, it's kind of $100 a year is a pay increase from being a volunteer.
Yeah, double workload for sure.
It is, but I'm also very present to the fact that on the outside you can have a certain degree of influence, and at the end of the day, it's who's going to be pushing the button.
Yeah.
And so knowing that I would be in the seat pushing the button, I really want to be sure that I have the voice of my constituents behind me, because that's what this is supposed to be. This is what New Hampshire is very unique legislative process, and the size and how we work, and it's really supposed to be citizen representative government. And
it's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be, and we're not seeing that. And I want to be sure that I bring that back. And that word politician is not in my vocabulary. I'd like to be a stateswoman, or a stateswoman, because you're truly representing the people, and that's what I want to do.
Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, that would be a breath of fresh air in the Senate for sure.
Yes,
for sure. So if somebody, I always like to think outside the box when I was in my run, to try to figure out how would I answer somebody that has been an independent, right, but leaned left, because I know you're an independent as well. I mean, you're running as a Republican, but you're an independent Republican.
I'm fairly, yes.
Yeah.
Kind of libertarian.
I think I am too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are some things, party platform, that, party platform I'm pretty good with, but there are some things happening politically within the Republican Party that I really don't agree with.
Yes.
And, so that's a whole different discussion for another day. But if you were going to speak to that, let's say a left-leaning independent, why should they vote for you rather than for Lou D'Alessandro?
I think, again, part of it is just citizen representation, that I would be sure that I would be up there voting for them and being their voice in Concord. We have many differences. As I said, taxes were one of them. It's social issues were actually somewhat similar on some of them. And I just think that going up there, I would want to be sure that I'm representing them and their tax dollars, and ensuring that that what we have, no, not going to take away. Nobody's taking away roads or Social Security or any of those kinds of things. The needful things. And so there's a difference between wanting and needing. And let's get back to making sure we have the things that we need for people who need them.
Absolutely.
And make sure we have what's needed in place, those safety nets for that's because I care. I mean, I care about people. I run a medical practice part-time, and I'm a small business owner. And so I get it. I have people, that are stuck in this space where they, they can't get the care that they need, or they can't get the meds that they need. So I'm very present to the issues that are out there, the social issues. So I just think I would be a better steward of their money and be very present to those social issues as well. Yes, and look for real solutions. So some of the solutions that have been brought forth aren't really solutions.
No. They make it look good solutions.
They make it look good, and when you really look at one of the things that people do, it's kind of like not judging a book because of its cover. Well, just don't judge a bill by its title. And so people have a tendency to do that. This sounds like a great piece of legislation or a piece of feel-good legislation.
Right.
And when you read it, you realize that, oh, no, this takes away this
This is a
right of
mess.
yours. This is going to increase your taxes down the road. And
Right.
it's really looking at some of the unintended consequences of pieces of legislation.
Absolutely. You
And
know-
so when somebody says they supported this bill that sounds wonderful, I may look at that piece of legislation and go, okay, wow, this is where it's against the taxpayer. This is where it's against the taxpayer.
Right.
This is the, and so
Devil's
looking
in
at
the
it.
details.
Exactly, exactly. And so there can be a lot of inaccurate information out there about what a piece of legislation does and doesn't, and saying something may do something. If you read through the piece of legislation and it's not written in there that it's going to specifically lower taxes by X percent,
Right.
then quite frankly it's not. So it has to say shall lower.
Yeah.
A shall means it has to, but a may means,
Doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't have to. I may dye my hair purple tomorrow,
You're
but
right. I
probably
might
not going to happen.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
It's interesting. Until I sat in the seat and really understood the guts of how this
Yes.
all works legislatively, they work really hard on those titles, and they sometimes make the titles deliberately.
Oh, sure.
Almost opposite if you read the bill.
Yeah.
And all those times when I was sitting at home and I was watching the news or reading the newspaper, and you'd say, up in the Washington and the Fed, read the bill. You sit there as a normal human being and you go, well, duh. How stupid can you be? You're going to vote on something and you haven't read this
Right.
400 or 500 piece atrocity, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? Here in Little New Hampshire,
Yeah.
it happens.
Oh, yeah, it happens
Legislators
everywhere.
don't read the bills,
Yeah,
folks. So,
yeah.
it's important to put people in office that are not only savvy as to what the real issue is, not the feel-good issue, but the
Yes.
real issue.
Yeah.
And that will dog the real issue for you, because maybe as a citizen you can't get into the guts of the bill. Put people in those seats that will have your back and read the bill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know one of one of the challenges is we have almost between 800 to 1,000 pieces of legislation that come through the. It's an
incredible.
astronomical number, and that's
incredible,
every
yeah.
year. It is
Yeah.
incredible. And one of the unique things here in New Hampshire is every piece of, unlike other states, so if you're the chair of a committee and you see a bill come by and you go, I don't want to deal with this, they can just toss it into a drawer and it disappears,
Right.
magically goes away.
Right.
But here, every piece of legislation that gets a bill number has a public hearing that you, John Q. and Jane Q. Public are, more than welcome to attend. You can find it in the House calendar. And there's an executive session, and each one of them gets a vote by the entire House body, whether it's on the consent calendar or the regular calendar. So there's two different votes.
Right.
So if a committee recommends that a bill sounds like a really great bill, they're going to vote, let's pass this bill, ought to
Yeah.
pass. Or a committee may go, this is an absolutely horrible bill, we're going to ITL or kill this piece of legislation. And when it's almost unanimous in a committee, it goes into what's called the consent calendar. And so when the bills go into the consent calendar, there may be 150 bills in there. So there'll be one vote on, do we accept what the committee recommended on all these bills in this
Could
bucket?
be 20 bills that have been
Oh,
put
okay.
in the
Put in the
consent.
bucket because
Okay.
of the committee recommendation is almost unanimous.
Yeah.
And so they'll do voice vote. Usually it's yes, they'll adopt whatever committee recommends. It's the other pieces of legislation that actually come to the House floor and are voted by all 400 state reps.
Right.
Well, that's a lot of pieces of legislation to read. And
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a tough thing.
It is
but
a tough
you know
thing.
What I love about New Hampshire the best
Yeah.
is that even if the committee goes ought to pass, right? So it goes in the consent calendar. Anyone can pull that bill
Yes.
off the consent calendar to be heard on the floor
Really?
for debate in the House of Representatives. That's as representative for your public as you possibly can be.
Yeah.
So nothing can really, if
No.
there's a legislator that believes and wants to debate this bill, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the process. You can't kill it
Yeah.
unless you let it go, unless a legislator decides
Yes.
to let it be killed.
Yeah.
And so we've had things pulled out off of the consent calendar where the committee's recommended to pass unanimously, and then again it's finding somebody brings up to a point. Well, do you realize you've just given yourself a raise in this economy? And they go, oh, maybe we're all going to now vote against this piece of
Right.
legislation because this would make really bad press.
Right.
And then they go ahead, and so you can
And you
overturn.
can turn it over, right?
You can
and it happened a few times.
It's
You know,
happens,
we,
yeah.
We had a dramatic, we had a minority, for Republicans in the House this year. People know that. But
Yep.
there were a lot of bad bills that were making its way through, and a few times, especially the gun bills. I
Yes.
think that we were pretty successful in getting those out of the way because some of those bills were atrocious.
It amazes me. It
Yep.
just seems so politically suicidal in a state like New Hampshire for people to even that and income tax bills.
No, you mean the gun bills? You
Well,
mean
well,
gun-
yeah, gun bills, but also but I'm just saying too. But also when I hear about income tax bills and things like that too, just
Well-
things that it's like, why do they even try? It just seems like it's politically just untenable.
Now there are some people. I have spoken with people up in Concord that are sitting legislators right now, who really believe that we should have an income tax
Correct.
here.
Yeah,
Who
amazes
really
me.
really want to have an
Amazes
income
me.
tax or a sales tax here, and you're going, wow, what so are you going to lower property taxes? So what are you going to offset with that?
Right.
And so no, we just want to
Layer it on.
We just
Right.
want to bring more income in. We just want to bring another
Just.
revenue vein into the government, and that's
Yeah.
just not okay.
Absolutely not. And, it's usually the real progressives that are behind this that really think more is more. And more never solved a damn thing, sorry, because you have to really, to solve the problem, you said the devil is in the details. That means that a group of people have to come together, doesn't matter what side you're on now, and talk the truth.
Right.
Talk the truth, not the byline, and not the talking point, and not the thing that you think is going to get that group of people to make look good what it is that you're trying to get done. But the truth.
Yeah.
And battle it out. Battle out the appropriate legislation. But I'll tell you what, they are so against that, the progressive left, because they want to be able to try to win the day by thinking more money will solve the problems. And it doesn't.
Right.
Exacerbates them.
No, exactly. That's exactly what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I believe that people are the best steward of their own money.
Absolutely.
So you know what you need for your family. You know those kinds of things. And for somebody someplace sitting in Congress to be making those decisions for you.
But they know
is-
better. That's a lot of these legislators
Yeah.
believe they know better. Gambling. We know that Senator D'Alessandro would absolutely sell the farm and then some to be able to get gambling here in New Hampshire. I have to say, reading those gambling bills this year, I could not believe what was in those bills.
They're absolutely terrible.
I just have to ask, does he ever get involved in any other issue? Or is that like the only thing he...
That's his big deal. I mean,
That's his big deal. And
Yeah.
and again, one of the challenges with that is all of those pieces of legislation. If you really wanted to repeal gambling in the state of New Hampshire, there's a couple of RSAs. You just had to, literally, it's a one-line bill. Repeal RSA, I don't remember the numbers, I know 370 whatever, and this, there's 3 RSAs. If you repealed those, it would allow gambling. But all of those bills that we have seen brought forth, they're monopoly gambling, duopoly.
Totally.
So 2 casinos. So nobody tells Walgreens or McDonald's or so you know what, you can only bring 2 in the state.
Right.
And we're going to tell you where you can put it.
Right,
So
we're
nobody
gonna
tells them.
control
They want to just control that. And so
Yeah.
when one of those organizations, again, McDonald's, Walgreens, wherever, are looking to come to our state, is they want to put their facility where they know it's going to be the most profitable, where it's going to give them return on their investment. And so by the government dictating that, you don't know if they're going to be successful. You don't know. You're already fudging up the marketplace by having the government decide, well, no, you can only put one here,
Right.
and one here, or whether it's
we
2 or
don't get
3.
a
It
say.
is. It is.
Yeah.
It's
a say.
No one gets a say in that. And again, it's a certain the revenue. But at the end of the day, it still makes 8 guys sitting around a table playing for money illegal. It still makes them criminals.
Right.
So none of those bills, it doesn't address that. And there's nothing specific on where any of the funds are going. So I mean, there's been talk of, well, it may reduce your property taxes. Well, there's nothing in that 140-something page bill
Nothing.
that says it shall reduce your property taxes by 4% or by 3%. There's absolutely nothing.
It's a talking point.
It is a talking point. So all that is at the end of the day, it's just going to be another revenue source. They're going to send a little bit here,
Right.
and a
It's a
little bit there.
cronyism is what it is.
But what are they bringing in? What kinds of jobs are those coming in? What? It's actually some of the employment's going to increase the dollar of the taxpayer. It's
Yeah.
going to be off the taxpayer dollars because they're going to need more security. You're going to need more law enforcement.
Right.
You're going to
Right.
need more road
It's
things.
the same thing.
Yes.
They don't want to handle the small issues
Yep.
and then talk about gambling. No, they'd rather bring this behemoth and thrust
Yeah.
it on the New Hampshire public. We won't even talk about the fact that how many of gambling casinos right now in this country are going under. They're tanking.
John Heichels mentioned that when he's been on the show, because
Yes.
a lot of people, there's a perception out there, I think, that gambling is this panacea,
Oh, no.
that if only you have gambling, all your state's budgetary issues will be
So-
solved forever and we'll all be rolling in cash.
So let me just explain. So I have my mother and 2 sisters live in Ohio. So the property taxes are probably 15, 17 per thousand. So, it is less than here. But you have a state income tax. So
Right.
that's one. So you have a state income tax in addition to federal tax.
You've got a lot more too, I
Right?
think, than that,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah.
A few
So
more.
not only that, but you have a local tax where you live and a local tax where you work. This is income tax straight off the top. You never see it.
Yeah.
So it's up to 3.5% in each place. So if you lived in Manchester Ward 10 and you drove into Goffstown to go to work or vice versa, it's 7% off the top in local taxes. So you have state taxes and 2 local taxes where you live, where you work, and then you have an 8% sales tax depending on what county you live in. And then, no. And then you have
Wow.
your property taxes.
Right.
And then they also have casinos. So what are the casinos really offsetting? I mean, truly, they're not
Right.
offsetting anything.
It's not.
They're just something. They're just another slush revenue
It's
source
slush, right.
for. So yeah, it just is. It hasn't really solved problems in the places that have them.
It
What they're going to solve. And so when you're putting forth a piece of legislation and when you're looking at something, what is the problem that this is supposed to solve?
Right.
Again, whether you're writing a paper or you're doing a meeting, what
Well,
is
they'll
the purpose
tell
of
you
this,
it's revenue.
and how will this solve this issue? So, what's the issue are we solving?
Right. Right.
What does gambling? What does the casino
And-
trying
and-
to really solve?
On the floor, we discussed this. They kept saying revenue. We need revenue. Well, the truth of the matter is how absurd is this? That Governor Hassan put in as revenue, gambling revenue, in our budget before. No,
Yes.
I remember
no,
hearing
no,
about
I
this.
did.
Yeah.
This is great. Yes, come on,
Yeah.
Jane.
I mean,
this
like-
is great.
This is Disneyland stuff. This is like, that can't be true, right? No. It was in the budget.
Yeah.
Gambling, we hadn't even voted on the bills to make it a doable thing. And yet it was being included as revenue. That is stewardship. Sorry. That's negative stewardship. That's
Right.
like real. That's so bad that, and yet, his recent thing in the Union Leader talks about, how great, we could have done with gambling. I don't know if it was that or not, something else I was reading, but Disneyland stuff. It's Disneyland stuff. I have no problem with gambling.
Yeah.
Right? I don't. If you want to go gamble, hey, this is America. You can go gamble. I have a problem when the state takes it over and they tell Joe A and Joe B, we're going to give you all this money.
Right.
Right? We weren't going to see any revenue, I believe it was 8 or 10 years.
Yeah, something
Wow,
absurd
really?
like that. Yes.
Gosh, yeah, because
Oh.
the infrastructure gets the first feed,
Yeah.
don't you know?
Yeah.
So the state wasn't going to get any funding from that for many, many years out.
Oh.
And it's just a bad bill no matter how you look at it.
Oh, yeah.
Bad
Yeah,
bills.
and again, let's keep bringing this thing around. New Hampshire does not have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
Right.
We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
Right.
And so the only way to decrease spending is you got to cut spending.
Right.
That lower spending equals lower taxes. Period.
Over half of the budget in New Hampshire right now is going to HHS.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yes.
That
Half
much? Wow.
of the budget. That was never true before. So those numbers are just getting bigger and bigger. And now, you know what? Those numbers that we reflect right now, because there is a deficit where they've already absorbed this, I think it was 72 million,
Yes.
72 million surplus that was from the last budget. The demonized Bill O'Brien legislature that was so demonized. Well, yeah, right. His revenues were almost stock on and wicked surplus from it,
Really?
which was given to this budget,
Yeah.
which has already been eaten up, gone over by
Budget,
52
yes.
million, and now even has like an 18% on top of that.
Yep.
This is the level of incredible lack of stewardship going on in our state. It's
Yeah.
really important for folks to get up and vote for folks like Eileen
Yeah.
to keep it honest.
Yeah.
And so what they keep doing is they keep putting in legislation that people who are in, or keep putting in legislation to increase your taxes in one way, shape, or form. And taxes don't necessarily are things called taxes. They're things called fees.
Fees,
are really
yeah.
taxes. We know that. So
Yeah.
the registration fee for your vehicle is really a tax on your ability to use your vehicle on the road that you've paid for. So
Right.
I mean, if
How
you
about
want
the gas tax?
again,
The second gas tax, which we all love, and we know it's just going to make the perfect roads in New Hampshire. Yeah, we'll be lucky to see that money go to the roads, just like we didn't see the money go to the infrastructure of roads and bridges on the first gas tax. That was a dedicated fund. So you know what? It's all a game. It's all a
Yeah.
game, and people better start understanding that if they don't start getting in the game and listening and doing some reading for themselves to find out what the facts are, get rid of the talking points, because the numbers do not lie. We're
No.
going to pay big time in New Hampshire for that.
Yep.
It's not a good thing.
No, I agree. We have to. It's time for change, and that's what I keep telling everybody. It's time
Real
for change,
change.
and real change.
Real
And
change.
I really want to bring that forth.
Absolutely.
For New Hampshire. I mean,
Now,
it's,
Second Amendment. Where does Senator D'Alessandro sit on the Second Amendment? We were talking to you about
I'm
it. You
pretty
said that.
sure, well, I'm pretty sure he is not a strong supporter of the Second Amendment.
Oh,
He is. I don't
What a
think that
surprise.
he pretty much agrees with that.
so what about you? Where do you stand on the Second Amendment?
I am a very strong supporter of the Second Amendment. Somebody's going to ask. So
Yeah.
yes, I am.
You're
very-
packing.
I am packing.
I love it.
So yeah,
So you
that's
just don't want to try to take that on, okay? Because that's a wonderful equalizer. I think
it is.
anyway.
It is. And as a woman,
Absolutely.
my father was a cop,
Mm-hmm.
and he was very, very clear. You know, when seconds count, police are minutes away, and
Yeah.
you need to know how to protect yourself, especially as a female.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't compete with a 250-pound guy.
Right.
And but this affords me a certain level of peace of mind.
There you go.
And knowing that I can take care of myself in a situation. Now, am I gonna put myself in that situation?
No,
I'm gonna.
course not.
I'm still gonna be prudent.
Right.
And not reckless or careless just because I'm carrying a firearm. But by the same token, I also know is that if I'm working late and it's 10 o'clock at night and
Right.
I'm leaving the office, that I'm okay to walk out to my car.
You don't have
Right.
to have that fear.
I don't have to have fear, and it's a totally different mindset of being
Absolutely.
in. Yes,
Absolutely.
and knowing that I can manage this all by myself.
Right. It is a different feeling, I have to say. You know, today was interesting. I'll go into a quick story because today, Susan Olson, remember she was on a couple of weeks ago. She's the chairwoman for Women's Defense League of New Hampshire.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's a real, strong supporter of the Second Amendment. And we went today to, I call it the Traveling Roadshow. The Gabby Giffords Traveling Roadshow. This one is the Americans for Responsible Solutions, which is basically 9 states they travel to in the country. We're the last of the 9th, New Hampshire, and today they sent out invitations to people for this, which I saw in 2 different areas. I can't remember where I saw it, but Susan and I thought we would go today. And so we came in and we wanted to hear the dialogue. You know,
Yeah.
we weren't there to stop the meeting. We didn't have signs
Right.
to protest, you know. We just wanted to sit and listen.
Yeah.
So we were sitting there, and a few people came over to us, and this woman, Tiffany Eddy from WMUR, formerly, I guess, I don't know, is she still on that station? And she came over and she asked our names, and we introduced ourselves, and she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, yeah, it's nice to meet you." And, so we sort of knew that she got the name, she knew who we were.
Yeah.
And it didn't even take 2 minutes before 3 people walked over to us and said, "Okay, you're going to have to leave."
Really?
Oh, yes. And so
Wow.
we were very polite, and we said, "Well, why is that?" I said, "We saw this invitation." I said, "We're not trying to disrupt anything. We just want to sit back and listen
Yeah.
and hear the discussion, because it's an important discussion for women." That was the whole protecting women was
Okay.
today's discussion. Well, we're 2 women. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment in the House, as a House of Representatives, and Susan's the head of the Women's Defense League of New Hampshire, and they just got even more assertive. That,
Really?
we had to leave. We were not invited. We were not included. We did not RSVP, so we had to leave. So
No kidding.
we left, and we kind of chuckled for a little bit outside. But the truth of the matter is, this group has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in the state of New Hampshire. Again, you can look it up. Americans for Responsible Solutions, because right now the big money is in the ads they're running against Garcia and Ginta. Right now they're just carpet bombing them with how dangerous, guns are dangerous, and that fear mongering that they love
Right.
to do. What I love about this, though, the height of irony for me of this is that this is for the women. This is protecting women. What can protect me more than having an education and understanding
Yep.
how to do so with a firearm?
Right.
And
Right.
yet they will never go there, because it's not about protecting women. It's about getting to the Second Amendment rights that we hold in this country.
Exactly.
Just disgusting.
I remember somebody had pointed out to me as we were driving along and said, "You see all those signs?" And I said, well, yeah. And they said, "Well, those signs are welcome signs to criminals, all the Democratic signs on their lawns. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, they don't support guns. So they don't support guns. And so any criminal going by should be taking down their address, because what that means is that, when you're looking to do your easy Christmas shopping, that's where you go, because most likely that
Holy
person has
moly.
no ability to defend themselves.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, so it's literally like an open for, please come to my house. I have no way to protect my home and my family.
Yeah.
You're welcome to take my things. That's every Democrat sign in their yard.
Oh, my
and
Lord.
I wasn't ever present to that till the person said it. I was like, wow, that's that hadn't occurred to me. But again, Republicans
true.
are for Second. It is true.
It is true.
Republicans are for Second Amendment rights, and you'd better think twice before you'd walk onto
Sure.
one of their
Sure.
pieces of property.
It's kind of in a state as safe as New Hampshire is. It's kind of like a solution in search of a problem.
Absolutely.
If you restrict guns, what problem is it going to solve if there's no problem to begin with?
Somebody else will control the whole thing.
Well,
Right.
again, it's the restricting. If a criminal wants to get a gun, they're going to get a gun.
Right.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
And so, in any way, shape, or form. And so, what that does, any type of restriction, is really restricting the law-abiding citizen.
Yeah.
And hindering a law-abiding citizen's ability to protect themselves and their families.
And here is the insidious thing about this, specifically this meeting. We walked in, there's probably 25 people with their little name placards on there. And you had running the meeting, really, along with Giffords, was the woman that's for Granite State Progress, which
Okay.
does an awful lot of work trying to get gun rights, stripped.
Taken away, yes.
Yes. And so we had those people there. We had about 20 other people. That I saw senators, Senator Donna, was it Susie?
Yes.
She was there, and a lot of representatives that are not pro-gun. And when you go out into the parking lot, however, it was disturbing to see the number of license plates. Maryland, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts. So they have their little cabal meeting. Closed. You get your butt out of here because
Right.
you're not welcome.
Yep.
Right.
And you know what the meeting is for? To bang out legislation. All those out-of-staters come to New Hampshire to meet with our legislators to bang out legislation to take away our gun rights. We should be upset about that. That's not how
Oh,
we
yeah.
should be doing business.
Yeah.
It's one thing if the New Hampshire legislators or the folks in New Hampshire want to get together and bang that out. I have no problem with that. That's what the system's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But that's why we were asked to leave.
How much
Yeah.
how much crossover on this issue is there in New Hampshire party? Because I know there's pro Second Amendment Democrats, but
Yeah.
are there also Republicans who are kind of a problem on this issue?
Not so
There
much.
aren't many of them.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
are very, very, very few of them.
Yeah.
Not that I've seen. Yeah.
And there's a good handful of Democrats that do support Second Amendment
Yes.
rights.
Yeah.
And then some with some degrees of limitation.
Sure.
They have
Right.
a little bit more things that they'd like to have restricted or registered or things along
Sure.
those lines. But they'd really like people to be able to have them.
Right.
So, but then you have the other end of the spectrum where they're,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be allowed to carry them at all.
Well, it's
Right.
really interesting to see, and we're being the female, I think our voice
Yeah.
is probably the most important
Oh,
to
yes.
say this stuff. But just like they have found a way to make any kind of social conservatism the boogeyman, we're going to strip women's rights away, and they don't want women to have health care, right, if you're a conservative, right? This is just crazy stuff, right?
Yes.
But it's the canard. It's the key word, right? The lousy Republicans or whatever they want to call them. The irony is that it's now going to the gun thing because this thing today was protecting women, right? And you know what? Why do they weaken us to this point? I mean, why do we get to the point where, as a woman, I can look at that politician, I want to get women to this point and say, you know what? You can't control me on birth control anymore. I don't care if I have to pay $9 for my birth control. Stop using it as a little lure to try to get my vote. Women aren't that dumb. I don't understand how this happens.
I think because it's an emotional issue. And when your emotions are driving the bus, your brain isn't engaged. And so it's marketed in such a way, or
Yes.
that it hits the emotional issue.
Right.
And that's
Now
where
they're
it
gonna
is.
protect
And
women.
Now they're going to protect women, and that's not how it works.
Well,
I think again, leaving whatever those decisions are into the hands of the individual
You think.
is up to the individual.
Right.
And yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I think just an observation on the birth control thing as an independent. I think that because there are a lot of Republicans who push for things like the Personhood Amendment and life
Yeah.
begins at conception and all that. And if you go with that,
Yeah.
that does, in theory, outlaw certain very popular forms of birth control,
Like what?
like the pill.
Hun,
If you
you
say,
are looking at the strongest proponent of personhood just about in the state of New Hampshire. And that is a misnomer I'm
Okay.
telling you. There's no way that I would ever, and I believe that I can say this with most of my compatriots,
Right.
that anybody would say that any form of birth control was an issue. That is between the woman and her desire. It's at the point
good
of
for you.
conception. It's the point of life. There are pro-lifers believe that there's the guy upstairs, whatever you want to call him,
right.
that mandates life. That means life is important at conception. That means that life is important at end. When that person is older, at no point do we get to come in and judge when to cut it off.
But doesn't something like the pill interfere with that
No.
point between conception and implantation?
No, because you have not yet met the... Now, you're talking about the abortion pill?
No, I'm not.
You said birth control.
Birth control.
To my mind, that is not life, right?
Okay.
Because life has not met its... In my mind, I have not made life. If I have birth control, I have stopped that from happening, correct? Now, that's
Right.
not the same thing as that overnight abortion
The
pill.
RU46.
Yeah. To me, that's very controversial. And there are so many medical studies that have been throw them in the back to don't tell you about it.
See, you know what though? I think you said RU486, but you said the basically you were referring to the morning after pill.
Correct.
And those are two separate things, but they get conflated quite a bit, and I think that's an
But
issue
they
as
are
well.
two separate. They're
They are
very
two separate
different.
things.
Right. But a lot of pro-lifers I've noticed is this tendency, whether it's intentional or not, and I don't think what you both just did was intentional, but you kind of
Well, I don't understand how it's conflated.
because if they're two different things, see, what I've noticed is pro-lifers will often talk about them as though they're the same thing.
No, I don't agree with you at all with that.
But see, it just, again, I don't believe
No.
it was
She was
intentional.
thinking.
but-
No, she said one thing, and I said something. I said what came to
She
my
was
mind.
telling me what that pill
Right,
was.
no, I understand, but I think there's a communication thing that happens on the right that contributes to some of the misunderstanding that people have, because a lot of people don't talk about them like they're two separate things.
Really?
This
You know
isn't-
what? You're making me educated here. You're educating me because I had not thought of that. In my circle,
Yeah.
at least, I don't know what that means. Birth control it's not even discussed. That's birth control.
Right,
That
right.
is not. We're not dealing with life.
Yeah.
Right. We're making sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
Right, responsibly. But at the point of life, that's, I think, where most pro-lifers will jump in. In any case, our
not-
original point, what was
and
our
then-
original point?
Not everyone takes the time to clarify it though the way you have.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
that's
should be
good. I mean,
clear.
that's your credit. But a
then-
lot of Republicans don't explain that, and I
Yeah.
think they just kind of leave it out there. I guess what I'm saying is it's not just the left making it sound like this is how it is.
I see.
I think the right sometimes does a very poor job of clarifying that, like you
Communicating
just
it.
did. Yeah,
Communicating
yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
Right. So,
Well, and then there's also different ends on the spectrum of where
course.
what somebody might be for
Right.
or against with regard to that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
where it's that point of when
is life for you?
when is life? Yeah.
Right.
So that opinion varies
Oh, sure.
greatly, I think,
but
among
see, they do take this
group.
emotional discussion. Is the point?
Oh, yeah.
And they
Oh, it's
politicize
effective.
it to the point that they say to me, "Well, you don't want women to have, a birth control." I mean, how absurd a statement! I don't want taxpayers. I don't want my money,
Right.
because of my religious beliefs, to go and fund somebody else's abortion. I
Right.
should be able to know that that's not happening.
Right.
Now, value judgments aside,
Sure,
that
sure.
should be a no-brainer. Get the money out of it. Take public funding of this stuff out. And that even makes sense in a fiscal way.
Well, it does. It makes sense in a fiscal way. So it's if that is something that your reproductive freedom is also your reproductive responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
And so by
Exactly.
keeping it in you, once you delegate part of that responsibility to another individual,
Pay for it.
to pay for it or whatever, then you open up the door
Right.
at some point in time for them to put some other, if I'm paying for it, like college, if
Just
I'm paying
keep
for my
doing it.
kids' college, at some point
Right.
in time, I expect to see results, or I should be able to have some say in that.
Exactly.
Right.
And so when you expect somebody else to pay for something of yours, it automatically kind of unspokenly, maybe not, allows them to have a say in what you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And so if you really want true reproductive freedom,
Right.
you have to take all of the responsibility for that
it
freedom
weakens.
to yourself. So
Right.
so it weakens you. So
Yeah.
if you
No, I
want
agree.
to be on birth control,
agree.
then please go ahead and I
Absolutely.
appreciate the fact that you're willing to step up and take responsibility for your reproductive freedom.
Absolutely.
And great. But I shouldn't pay for
Don't
you.
ask me to pay
don't
for it.
ask me to pay for
Absolutely.
that.
Right.
And plus,
Um,
the
yeah.
canard with the Planned Parenthood, hundreds of millions of dollars are flowing through that company in New Hampshire. That's not private money. That's public money. And that money could be spent in much better ways. And we wouldn't be making women this needful, that the woman has to live off the government. I mean, why is that good? Where is the feminism argument here?
So my question is
Good point.
where are the private sector solutions?
Yeah.
So are there any private sector solutions to this? So I know that Planned Parenthood does other things other than abortions.
Not much.
They,
but
they provide some counseling,
Some.
rape counseling. I know a young gal who in another state had been
Okay.
raped in college, and she was able to get support and whatever she needed from a Planned Parenthood there.
Yeah.
So I know that they do more than just that. So
Right.
if everybody's so adamant about the tax dollars, so where is the private sector solution for that? Where is the private sector that creates an
let
organization
them run it on their own.
that can
privately.
do that? So that would be wonderful to be able to do that, because then they're free to do whatever they'd like to do and
Right.
how they want to practice medicine in their facility,
Right.
Without our
see, if they
intruding
lose-
within the regulations and the
Right.
licensing
If
and
they
those kinds
lose
of
the
things.
money, they
Yes.
go out of business, and they know it. So that's why they're on the feed. They need the constant feed of our money to perpetuate their canard of telling everybody this is like sliced bread. Everybody should have one. It's easy. You can do it. This is all from their site. You can see it.
Well, I also want to say the other side too on the pro-life group. Let's see some real solutions in the private sector to help and be compassionate to a woman who's in a position
But
where
we do.
she's
It's
faced
all
with
charitable.
that. Is it
I
all
mean,
charitable?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I mean,
So-
there are
so
so
is
many
there-
clinics.
So clinics are working on
don't
making
get state
adoption as a real option.
Yes.
Are those things being moved forth in the private sector?
They are trying, and they're done
Okay.
through charitable means. There is no
Great.
public money that's going to those kinds of things. I mean, there's one wonderful, not clinic, but a women's counseling center right here in Manchester that has to ask people to chip in to pay their rent every month. Believe me, Planned Parenthood doesn't need to ask anybody to chip in to pay their rent.
Right,
Right.
right.
And we do it. I'm one of the ones that's doing it, so I know it's true. And that's what you do. You step up to the plate if you believe in it, and you give freely through your charity. That's what faith is about. It doesn't mean sucking it off the taxpayer just because you can. That's why we're broke.
Well,
It's terrible.
Well, one of the things that I know that have been shown when you look at countries that have more and more of their people's income is spent in taxes. So when you're looking at 70, 80%,
Yeah.
those countries, those individuals in those countries are some of the most, I'm trying to not use the word selfish, but I'm going to use that word for lack of a better one coming into my head.
How about lazy?
No, not lazy. It's not the word lazy. Is every dollar that they're able to keep, man, they hang on to it.
Sure.
Like
Well,
it was.
sure.
Yes, because they've had so much taken. So they don't look at anybody. They look at everybody. Well, you know what? The government will help you. The
Right.
government will fix that for you. And so there's no compassion. There's
less
very little.
compassion.
There's less compassion. There's less understanding. There's
also-
less charity on those.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
here, I don't. Part of that is not wanting to lose that here,
Yeah.
because we're one of the most charitable
That's what it should
nations.
be.
This is where it should be. So if I really believe and I want to help this individual,
Mm-hmm.
I want to give them extra money. But because I want to help them doesn't mean that I want to force you to
That's
give
right.
me more money to
That's
help them.
redistribution of wealth.
Exactly. And so it's making sure that we tweeze that out and we understand that is not the way to go.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can always write a bigger check, for your property taxes. You can always write a bigger check
If
to
you're
the
so
IRS
inclined.
if you're so inclined to do that.
Right.
But I'd really rather have people write smaller checks to those government entities, markedly smaller checks to those government entities.
Right.
And with whatever's left over, how much more charitable could you be? I mean, if your taxes were reduced by half, I mean, think of how much taxes we paid back, after World War II. How much have our taxes increased since then? multiple fold. I think it was like 2 or 3% of your total income was paid in taxes. Now what are we looking at?
It's like six. It's close. It's getting
It's
close.
getting
to,
close to like 50-60%
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And so if you had, even if we have that, if you had another 25 to 30% of your own income in your hand,
Yeah. Good.
you'd be a lot more. You'd be a lot more
Plus,
charitable.
the society in general, when you
Yes.
have that happening, having lived in a European
Yes.
in a European country, folks, when they know that they're subsidized by the government, just don't have the same wherewithal that we have here in America. I
Sure.
lived in it.
Why would you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
want to
yes.
go get it here. You know, I can
Right.
do this. I can build this on my own. I can do that. In Europe, no, they kind of just,
Yeah.
because they've had it their whole life. This is how it's been.
Socialist, yeah.
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 And it kills the spirit.
Yeah.
It really does. The human spirit of drive and innovation and hope.
Yeah.
Gone.
I think here, though, there's a fear, too, and this kind of goes to what you were saying, Eileen, about, if people would be more charitable if they had more of their own money. I think there's a fear that some people have that if you did, in fact, adjust it so that we're not taking so much of people's money, would people really be as charitable? I mean, I think they would. I'm not so cynical to say they wouldn't be, but I think a lot of people are skeptical and cynical and say, well, I
why
don't
don't
know.
we
I don't know
try
if it
it?
would work out. And meanwhile, if it doesn't work out, you have all these people falling through the cracks.
Well, that's not to say there shouldn't be a net.
Right. Oh, of
Yes, for
course.
people who truly need it, and
Yeah.
part of that is transparency, and that would
about
be one of the first
verify?
thing. One of the first things that I would do is, again, let's look at some government transparency. Let's be sure that we know exactly where your tax dollars are being spent.
Right.
Not so that
my
there's some
goodness.
black hole here. I have no idea where it went. We
Yeah.
don't want that to happen. We want to be sure we know where the money's going. And so when you get to the transparency part, that's extremely helpful. But then it's looking at the tax dollars. Where are they going, and making sure you look at, again, is what, in a business sense, if you owned a business and you were doing this process and you're realizing that, well, we're really not making a profit.
You'd change it.
You would change and modify the profit if the program's not working. If
Right.
if the employee is not performing, you would have a sit down meeting and say, there's 90 days. Here's where we need you to work on. We'll have somebody work with you to get you where you need to be. And if that person is still not there, then they need to go find a job another place. But
Right.
you keep things that work and that are productive and will grow your business. The government
Right.
doesn't do that. The
Right.
government keeps
Yeah.
programs that aren't
Get a call?
functional,
Sure.
that aren't working.
Yeah, we do have a call. Hi, welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. Who's on the line?
John.
Hi, John. What you got?
Hi, I just have a question. Did Eileen Landis actually bring a loaded gun into the studio?
I don't know. Did she?
Is she there?
Yes, yes.
Why do you feel you need to bring a loaded gun into the Manchester Public TV studio?
Well, I carry.
Second Amendment right?
It's my Second Amendment right, and I put my firearm on before I leave my house in the morning, and I take it off when I put my pajamas on or when I get home in the evening. That's just part of how I get dressed.
Plus, in fairness,
Oh, because I am a gun owner. I believe in concealed carry and all that, but I just don't feel a need to carry a pistol all the time. I guess I'm not insecure, but I just find that
Maybe it's women.
rather
Maybe
outlandish to bring a loaded pistol into a studio.
I don't think so.
I don't think
That's
so.
all I have to say. Thank you.
thanks, John.
Okay, thanks, John.
Well, to be fair, I mean, I can be a bit unpredictable, so you never know. See that? That was terrifying, wasn't it?
No, but again, it's I'm a female, so that
Yeah.
puts me at a height, weight, size, etc. disadvantage
Yeah.
to somebody else, and it's only 6:51. I might not be heading home or hitting my backyard until sometime at 11 o'clock tonight.
But you
Yeah.
know what? You shouldn't
so-
have
but I
to
shouldn't
even
have to explain.
That's right. It's
Right,
your
right.
right.
It's my right to do
And
that.
It's your right. That's
It's my
why
right
we
to
have
do
it.
that.
Yes.
And again, it's as a law-abiding citizen, I'm sure that I am mindful of where I can and can go
Absolutely.
with it.
Yeah.
Education's a great thing.
Yes.
Although, feel free in the future to use the gun rack we have outside the
Oh,
studio
okay.
if you want. If you do want to leave it out
Good
there,
to know.
there is that option.
It's good to know that it's out there. So it's not a hand grenade,
That's true. That's true. We've had more dangerous
Now you
things
know
in
what?
here.
Maybe
Yes.
we should change the name of this whole program.
Rock, paper, pistols.
I think you better
like
talk
that?
to Gary first
Yeah, right.
before you
Yeah,
start
it is-
making-
it is kinda
like,
his
this
show.
This is kind of his show, I thought. So we don't want to do that.
It is, Gary. We're waiting for you to come back. So, okay, lol.
We got a few minutes left.
How many more minutes?
We got about that clock is fast. We got about 5 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
So 5 minutes. Give us your website information and how people can
Terrific.
contact you.
Great. My website is Landies. That's LANDIES, the number 4, NH.com. So that's my website. You could find some more information about me and where I stand on the issues, but I think it's kind of clear from our conversation here on many of them on where I am. Or you can call my cell phone. I've given my cell phone out. It's 603-714-5185. You can reach me on my cell. Don't call now. You can give me a call in a little while. I will try to reach back to everybody within 24 hours on phone calls and emails. So I do get quite a few of them. I was a little surprised on how many
Yes,
phone calls I'm getting.
absolutely.
So
That's encouraging.
I just want to reach out to people and ask. So as I've been going door to door and talking to your neighbors, what I'm hearing is the number one concerns are, jobs in the economy. So again, it's how to bring good jobs to the state of New Hampshire. 2, it's taxes. So everybody would like to have lower taxes, and the issue of our spending issue,
Yes.
not our revenue issue. And then 3, it's education. So if you have something different, healthcare comes in a very, very tight number 4. And then I've had interesting ones like the view tax. So apparently there's
Oh, my
some
goodness.
gorgeous places in Goffstown. I've been down those streets where I'm going, oh, this is breathtaking. And apparently they pay extra
Can
tax
you
for their
imagine
view.
a view tax?
I remember the first time I heard about
Yes.
that, I was like, that's just bizarre.
And so feel free to let me know what your top issues are,
bizarre.
because again, going to Concord, I want to be sure that I'm representing you and the constituents of District 20. So I'm very interested to hear what your concerns are.
So it's Landies, LANDIS, number 4, NewHampshire.com.
IES.
IES.
Like candies with an L.
There you go.
So
there you
yeah,
go.
the Landies4nh.com.
Are you still involved with is it the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance? Is that the name of the organization?
Yes, I am term limited out. I stepped down as chair at the end of November.
Oh, okay.
So I will not be running that organization anymore, and we're actually having elections for the chair for NHLA as well as research director.
Wow.
Okay.
So
Very
there'll
good.
be elections in the end of November.
Yeah.
So let me think what else. Oh, if you like what you've heard, please send me an email from my website or give me a call. I would love to have the honor of putting one of my signs in your yard.
Yes, that's important.
Donations are great. I'd like to be able to get out a couple more mailers.
Yep.
As well as if you are free on election day and want to come hang out and hold a sign with, a big pole with my signs with my name on it, I'd be greatly appreciated. Again, feel free to give me a call on my cell phone or go to my website and send me an email. That'd be wonderful. I'd love to hear from people.
It's great. Well, I hope you win.
Jane,
Rah, rah, rah.
I'm really hoping to. I know that, again, there's truly time for change. You can't, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing
Absolutely.
over again and expecting different results. And you can't get results using the same type of thinking you
Over
did
and
to
over.
create the problems.
And people need to know that district is a lot closer than the perception. That district is not a Democratic district.
No, the only reason why I believe the district has been how it's been is because of the individual in there. And
Yes.
if that individual wasn't in there, it would truly be a Republican district.
Yes. So
its
it matters.
partisan voting index is even. So this is a very winnable race. I need
Absolutely.
people to show up.
Right.
I need to be able to get, again, the name recognition, my name out more. I can only hit so many doors.
Right.
There's only one of me, and the heels are, there's only so many doors that I can hit in a day. I'm a mother of 2. I work, and I since I own my own business, I can make my schedule flexible to be up in the Senate and just make it work. And I want to have the opportunity to do that for the people in District 20.
Good for you. Good luck.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Eileen.
you.
Jane, thank you. Do you know who we have next week? You're here next week, right?
You know what? I think Gary's coming back next
Is he?
week, and
Oh.
he did ask me to do a show. I'm not sure who's coming in though.
Oh, okay. Well, it'll be a shared adventure.
Yeah, so be a show. There you go.
All right. That's
right.
it for this week. Bye, Gary, if you're watching, and we'll catch you all next week.